Welcome to Relationships on Reddit. In this series, we look at posts on Reddit. We'll check out some of the responses. I'll provide some coaching questions for exploration, as I would for a client who is in this situation. Then finally, I'll provide my commentary at the end of just being myself, unfiltered and unadulterated. Hi, I'm Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. Check out my links below if you're interested in working with me for group coaching or one-on-one coaching. The goal of exploring these posts is to have you become more discerning, intentional, and successful in your dating and relationships. One person feeling more than another. This is from the Dating Over 40 sub on Reddit, and let's jump into this. I started seeing a guy 10 years younger I met in real life, IRL. He asked me out, and we have been on 5 or 6 dates. We kissed on our third date and have made out a couple of times. Last date, while making out, he said, "This might sound scary to you, but I might be falling in love with you. You don't have to say it back." To me, this was too early. I like the guy and enjoy my time with him, but I don't have any love feelings, and now I'm wondering if I will ever feel the same way he does for me. I also like feeling emotionally connected first and then develop any feelings, and I am surprised by him feeling love given we don't even talk on a daily basis. I don't know if I should end things given we are both moving at very different rates, and this might be a compatibility issue. I don't really want to because I enjoy his companionship, but at the same time, I don't want to break his heart given he is already catching feelings and I might never feel the same way about him. Anyone have experienced this? And how did things go from there? Now, the first response is from Traditional Truck 348, and they say, "My ex was like this. He had these overwhelming feelings for me because things were exciting, new, and he was attracted to me. He wasn't love bombing, and I do believe he thought that was love. But like the other reply said, it was a sign of someone who didn't know how to slow himself down, and he was very immature. It's like his dopamine went wonky when we met and he acted on impulses instead of rationality. I fell for him just as hard and fast, but I refrained from saying I loved him or taking things too fast, mostly because I am divorced and learned a few things, as well as knowing what I want from a relationship after reflecting while being single for some time. My ex has always been in a relationship and never takes the time to sort out what he wants or how to identify feelings. It's also a turnoff for me when people say the L word so fast. It just seems so insincere. So while I don't think he's malicious, I do think it's something to keep an eye on because if he's high on dopamine right now, he's got you on a pedestal, and once you fall off, different story." All right, this next response is from Shroom_wisdom. "I would just see how it goes. Maybe he's anxious/insecure and gets attached quickly as a result. You can be honest about needing time to feel emotionally connected yourself. How he reacts to this will tell you a lot. I've dealt with this before and just jokingly told the guy to dial it back because I might be an axe murderer, a lighthearted way of asking him to get to know me first. Then he got annoyed about how long it was taking me to reply to text, and I just dumped him." Now, I appreciate this reply that was posted. I think it's kind of funny the way she asked him to dial it back. Side note, I do not think joking about harming people is the way to go, but everybody has different sense of humor. But when she observed the behavior of this guy getting frustrated because she wasn't texting back, she already saw red flags and signs that she didn't like about what the relationship was basically going to entail, and she just dumped him, which was wise before she caught feelings and start really emotionally investing in him. All right, then we have a response from Itchy Lifeguard, and they say, I want to jump on this thread before anyone calls this love bombing. It sounds like it could be if he's doing it to manipulate you. But just like you don't know him well enough to know if you love him or not, you don't know him well enough to know if this confession of love is just him being really unhealthy in relationships and moving too fast, or a pattern of using this tactic to control you. That's a very good point. There are a hell of a lot of TikTok and Instagram therapists these days talking about this subject. And the least qualified person to make a judgment call or whether or not this is love bombing is someone who watched a less than 5-minute clip on social media about the subject. This sounds like this guy has no idea of how to slow himself down in a relationship. A lot of people do this because they just haven't seen how unhealthy of a pattern this is in relationships. I think either way, love bombing or him moving too fast, you should gently let him down by telling him you think you guys are looking for different things. I wouldn't proceed because either way, this is an unhealthy way to approach a relationship. A third date in a couple of weeks of talking is way too soon. And then the reply from OP, Cantaloupe No 5055 says, thank you for your comment. I am very confident that this is not love bombing. He doesn't go overboard on his text and is not controlling or manipulative in any way. Has been very genuine and honest and has given me a lot of space and respect. However, it definitely could be an inability to slow things down, and that shows an immaturity in relationships. This next response is from Ole Uride. Love that scream name. I knew I was head over heels after my first date with my ex-wife. We were together for 8 years and I knew right off the bat. I only felt that way once before with this one particular girl in high school. I've dated people before, had various feelings in relationships, but those 2 times stick out in my memory. Sadly, the high school romance wasn't felt as strongly by that girl, but my ex-wife definitely fell head over heels as well. It seemed like we were meant to meet, and a lot of things that happened that ruined that, but that is a tale for another day. With this guy, who the hell knows if this is something that happens to him often or if he has an addictive personality type and seeks novelty, which often includes drinking too much and other things, or if he is sincere and you are one of a kind in his life. I'm 42 now, and I have learned that it's best to take your time. Love can wait, and delayed gratification is the best path forward to reduce risk. Now that, I really appreciate that response, because that is coming from a place of wisdom to acknowledge, yes, love at first sight can happen where 2 souls just recognize each other and meet. I do believe that personally as well, and I like this response that he recognized it. But when you just take your time, take a step back to really reflect upon your feelings in a situation, if it's real, it's not going to pass you by. You slowing down won't cause it to not come to fruition. So I think that is very prudent and wise counsel, that if OP chooses to continue with this guy, that slowing down might be the best way to go. And then she can make her own assessments and judgments as they move forward. Right. And our last response we're going to cover is from Stuck and Running From 2. And they say, I dated someone who tried to tell me he loved me a couple of months in. I told him, don't say that. A few months later, I was in love and I told him. People move at different speeds. It doesn't mean you need to bail because you don't feel exactly the same way right this instant. Imagine if he dumped you because you don't feel the exact same way right now, and he thought, well, what if she never does? Better get out of it now. Live with the uncertainty. And then that got a response from Switterloaf9, who says exactly this. Unless you are totally sure you will never get there, it's okay to give some time and see if feelings develop on your end. And you can share with him how you feel. If he really does feel that way, perhaps he could ask you what things make you feel loved and cared for. It could be that him doing those things helps you to develop those feelings. Moving on, we're going to jump into a segment that I like to call green flags and red flags. We basically look at the post that I just read through, and from a coaching perspective, I'm going to identify some of the green flags and the red flags to help you become a more informed and better person to date, and better when you go out on your own dating exploits and adventures to make wiser decisions. All right, let's jump into some green flags. So, green flag number one, I do appreciate whoever the guy is that OP is interested in seems to be communicative about his feelings. Now, we do have concerns that it may be too early, but the fact that he's comfortable communicating that and then kind of upfront and not having her play 20 questions about his emotions, that is definitely positive if this were to turn into a relationship. That's a great characteristic he has. Now, another green flag is OP having respect for their own pace, for her own pace. The fact that she says, I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to say that back. We've only been dating this amount of time. This is our third date. That shows me a pretty decent, if not pretty good level of self-awareness around the pace that they are comfortable with in moving in relationships. Doesn't sound like they're rushing to get into something. From what we read in that Reddit post, it sounds like they're comfortable taking their time, not too fast, not too slow, but they are very clear with themselves about a pace that makes them comfortable. And another green flag, which I appreciated them mentioning, is that they enjoy spending time with this suitor who has declared their love for them a little early on for their comfort, but they actually enjoy spending time with them. And that is why they're not sure if the next move for them is wanting to discontinue that, because they're having a good time. So OP seems very self-aware in certain aspects, even if they're not 100% sure on how to move forward at this time. Let's jump into some of the red flags. One of the biggest red flags that comes up is a mismatched or potential mismatched emotional investment. The suitor in this scenario is already professing love for OP. OP is like, I'm not there yet. We're still new. We're still going at, getting to know one another. My feelings aren't there yet. And this is how I know I process emotion and process connection with a partner. That is definitely a red flag. And something that is going to require communication, clear communication, and probably a dedicated meeting for them to level set to understand the next steps for them. There's a lack of daily communication. But to be fair, this was a pretty short Reddit post. So we don't know if they communicate more regularly than they do, but it doesn't seem like they have a daily communication schedule or routine and I don't mean strict routine, I mean just the way they interact, which is a bit of a red flag because it's almost saying, hey, are you all taking one another seriously? To look at the flip side of this could be because it's still very early on and OP is very tentative and intentional about interaction. But I would say if they are serious or are interested in really being serious with this person, that lack of daily communication is a bit of a red flag. And then I think this is a red flag for some. For me, it would be the 10-year age gap. 10 years is significant when you're in your 20s and your 30s. I feel once people hit mid 30s or late 30s and beyond, the age gaps aren't usually as, even if it's 10 years, like a 34-year-old dating a 44-year-old, or a 38-year-old dating a 48-year-old, even those two examples, I would be more comfortable saying, okay, a 38-year-old dating a 39-year-old, because you both have gone through some major developmental milestones, meaning as a person, your brain is fully formed, you fully can reason, you've been through some life experiences, either of you could have been married, divorced, had children, widowed or widower, etc. You've been through some adult things in life, the both of you. And usually the older that both parties are when that age gap occurs, the less impactful it is. I've observed, this is just my observation of working with clients and seeing things with friends in real life, as well as my own experience. I think there's, less of an impact there. From this post, I am going to surmise that the suitor who's 10 years younger is likely in his late 20s, mid to late 20s. I'm going to say late 20s to give him some grace. And that could be the impetus for some of the challenges that they're currently kind of facing. So, age gap in this scenario is a red flag for me. Now we're moving on to some coaching questions. These are the type of questions that I would ask in a session, during a coaching session with a client who is experiencing a similar situation to what I described in the Reddit post in their own dating lives. The purpose of these questions is to better inform you about your decisions in dating, gain more self-awareness, gain more awareness of other people's circumstances, and be prepared to pivot, move, and make wiser decisions in your own dating lives. All right, question 1. How is emotional connection and love defined in a relationship? How does this definition influence feelings toward the pace of the current relationship? This question is so important to ask ourselves as individuals when we get out in these dating streets and we're making connections with people. Far too often we think about and hear about on social media, because negativity usually gets the most attention, disaster dates and toxic men, toxic women, etc. But what happens when you meet someone and you genuinely click with one another and you're thinking about moving forward, you've dated for a little while? I think that's a really gray area in a lot of the rhetoric and content and commentary that's out in, social media, etc. today. So how is the emotional connection and love defined in a relationship? That is for each of us to kind of really look at and define for ourselves, and then have those discussions with the person that we're feeling once we feel we've gotten to that point. In the case of this Reddit post, the suitor has already kind of declared his love to OP. Now, to me, the ball's in her court to really have that discussion, as I was saying before, with him, to say, hey, this is where I'm at. These are the things I need to be present in terms of emotion to then, feel the same way about love in a relationship. Question 2. What thoughts and feelings arise about the difference in emotional pace between partners? For me, the one thing that comes to mind is that if this is not a point of discussion, once you start seriously dating someone, or even you two are kind of really in the same groove and you've gone on, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dates with one another, it is going to lead someone to feel that either you or them, whomever, somebody's going to feel that the other person's hiding something, or someone is going to be very insecure in the way you two are going. Once again, I am discussing healthy relationships and connections. I am not talking about something manipulative or abusive, or somebody trying to be a player, or somebody trying to be a sugar baby. We're not talking about that. We're talking about it in a genuine connection where two people are kind of still in the getting to know one another phase, but all of the components are there for the other person to feel like, okay, this person could be the one. So this is an important discussion to have about emotional pace. Some people are less expressive. Some people are more expressive. However, that difference shouldn't cause a wedge or drive a wedge, which will come about if there is not clear communication about how both parties kind of operate in romantic exchanges. Question 3. In what ways are feelings and expectations communicated between partners, especially regarding the pace of the relationship? I think the best way to communicate feelings and expectations is definitely verbally, having a conversation specifically around that. However, it can't be words alone. actions of both parties need to support what was said in that discussion or conversation about, emotional pace, the relationship, etc. In order for that trust to be built. And any healthy relationship is built on trust, including a romantic relationship. So it needs to start out with words and having a very clear discussion around it, but it needs to be supported by the actions of both partners. Whether they're in alignment or not in alignment, it still needs to sync up, because you can, for instance, not be in alignment with someone else's emotional pace, but you two both decide you enjoy spending time with one another, but your actions should still support the desire to A, stand on your word, but B, you still have a desire to be in a connection with one another in whatever form that takes. Question 4. What factors contribute to the need for more time to develop feelings in a relationship, and how is the formation of a deeper emotional connection recognized? So, first part of this question, what factors contribute to the need for more time to develop, feelings? I would say past relationship experiences, especially past negative relationship experiences, past trauma. If you are not healed, either party, and deciding to pour into one another during the getting to know one another phase, which leads up to a relationship. So usually past experiences, many times negative, or also a lack of relationship experience, could make someone kind of doubt what their feelings are and really want to double check with themselves. Another thing that can contribute is just wisdom. Once you've lived long enough, you understand taking your time, being very intentional, and being very clear will oftentimes net you the best results. I would say there are times in life, that's everyone's life, where impulse decision making works out in your favor and you need to do something on the spot and it was positively life-changing. Absolutely believe that. In many cases, life is not a rom-com, so in many cases, having a slower pace is showing, just being prudent and showing a bit of wisdom, and you get a lot more out of that. And because you are going at a slower pace, you will oftentimes be able to see signs that are telling you to maybe leave this alone a lot earlier on than if you rush headlong into something and you're full throttle very early on with a person. So the second part of this question, how is the formation of a deeper emotional connection recognized? Once again, this goes back to clear communication and discussion. When you get to the point, if you're dating someone and you're starting to catch feelings, be honest with yourself. And a great indicator is if you are afraid to be honest with the person that you're dating about maybe catching those deeper feelings, your intuition is likely trying to tell you something. Sit with that. Unpack within yourself. Why are you scared? Why are you feeling fear about, having a discussion around that? You probably know the answer and you just may not want to see it. So how is the formation of a deeper emotional connection recognized? It's because you feel those feelings welling up. You're starting to think about it more. You're starting to wonder about it more. Not in some weird obsessive way, but in a way that's more about the emotional investment and you're starting to fall. Have those discussions. And if you're afraid to have those discussions, you need to really tap into your own intuition and your inner self to see, why are you afraid? Because you already probably know the answer. You just don't want to admit it to yourself. But it's important you admit it to yourself so you won't go through a potentially just foolish situation in your pursuit of a person or in your engagement with this person. Because look, some people, men and women, they for the streets. You know what I mean? They are fun to hang out with. They're fun to date casually, but they are not long-term monogamous partner material. That's not what they want. That's not what they're about. Or they may say they want that, but their actions show otherwise. Let them be who they are. Don't judge them, but be honest about the role that's the best suited or well suited for them versus the role you want them to play. Question 5, considering the possibility of differing emotional timelines, how can the balance between enjoying the companionship and being honest about feelings and boundaries be maintained? This can be very tricky. And the biggest part of it for me is about the emotional maturity of both parties. You need to have clarity and transparency. You need to be honest. You need to have this discussion. So everyone knows that their choice is to walk away from this connection or continue to pour into one another and just enjoy the companionship. That is a hard line to toe, I won't lie, and is of course not for everyone, but for the people who do it and can do it well, these are the components I've always observed: honesty and transparency, regular, consistent communication, empathy, and strong boundaries. So everyone knows where everyone stands. Everyone treats and respects the other person. Everyone's clearly communicating what they need, but also keeping boundaries, around themselves and their energy, whatever that looks like for the two parties. And they can move forward in having that companionship if they want to. More often than not, I see when you do have those components at play, the person who is catching the feelings the fastest or the most, they'll walk away for their own sense of self-preservation and, sanity and, for their health, mental health and wellness. There's nothing wrong with that. But once again, that takes two very emotionally mature people to have these discussions and toe this line in a way that's not damaging to either party. Now let's jump into a section that is just my thoughts. I want to give you my unadulterated feedback on this. I answered the questions in the last section, but definitely just to go a little more into this particular area and some kind of words of wisdom for the ladies out here who are in these dating streets, especially on these apps, trying to really navigate and do the best and safest thing for themselves. All right, now going back over this Reddit post, when I read this, and this is why the 10-year age gap, and based upon what I've surmised, that the guy is 10 years younger than OP who's writing in, I think he's in his mid to late 20s. I think she's probably in her mid to late 30s. In this case, him declaring his love, to me, I don't get the love bombing vibe. What I get is that this is limerence. So limerence is a state of involuntary obsession with another. The experience of limerence is different from love or lust in that it is based on the uncertainty that the person you desire, called the limerent object in the literature, also desires you. That's what I think is going on here. I believe that the guy in the scenario, the suitor that OP is dealing with, and they enjoy one another's company, he has likely never dealt with a woman who is this probably emotionally balanced and calm. Not to say he's dated psychopaths in the past, but dating a woman who's 10 years older, probably when he's usually dated his age or younger, is going to be a vastly different experience. And based upon her writing and what she posted, she seems like a very calm-minded, balanced, very emotionally regulated person who probably communicates clearly. So she's not doing all of the crazy social media shit, if I had to guess, that he is probably used to for women that are younger than him that he dates, or women his age, because that's what's been popularized today, and a lot of people have fallen into that. So I think part of it is he's never experienced somebody with this level of maturity, and it's fun and they enjoy the company, and then she's not pressuring him. So he's probably experiencing a lot of things for the first time in a relationship. This may be, or in an engagement with a potential romantic partner. Let me say it like that. And he thinks this is love. Well, that makes sense for that to be his conclusion if he thinks that as soon as you catch feelings for somebody, it means love. Not recognizing there's a range of things it could be, and this is also potentially limerence. So that's what I read it as. I also don't think this guy, as I said, I don't see love bombing here, but I feel OP needs to be honest with him in a way she feels safe doing so. And, taking a step back from this guy and saying, hey, I like you too, but this is where I'm at. This is what would work best for me. This would This is what would support me the best. I enjoy your company. I enjoy hanging out. But if you think you're in love, it may be best for us to part ways. So I think that honest, hard conversation needs to occur in order for her to determine her next steps and in order for her suitor to determine his next steps. And it may be to part. It may be to wait a little longer. She has to make up the decision between tapping into her own intuition and asking herself what is the best for her. Also having a discussion with him in two things: understanding how he reacts and emotes, whether he has strong emotional regulation, whether he has, issues with her no. That's a huge sign that a man may be very problematic, a woman too. But if someone doesn't respect your no, that's a do not pass go sign. That I have learned and that I have worked with my clients to recognize and act accordingly to it to keep themselves safe in all aspects. Or it could be that they talk and he seems chill and he seems all right and she feels comfortable and safe to continue spending time with him. Now, because his feelings are stronger than hers, my advice would be for them to stay out of any home environments. You just don't want to get into that. Of course, on the negative side, something like sexual assault could occur, but you just don't even want to, on a non-negative side, you just don't want to lead somebody on. And the best way to do that is to have their dates always in a public location, always doing things outside of their homes. So this isn't a bad one, but this isn't a bad Reddit post, but this is a great example on why it's important to take a step back, ask questions of yourself first, have the right conversation with the potential partner, and then move forward accordingly to what will work best for you. Thank you for joining me today for this episode of Relationships on Reddit. Watch this video again. Answer the question several times. It's okay. Let me know your thoughts around my thoughts on some of the questions as well. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The more we can have these conversations amongst ourselves with one another, with other women, the more we can gain the insights we need to gain to date in a more intentional manner and in a safer, more effective manner. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, check out the links below in the description box. Also, check out my podcast, The Successful Invisible, next season, publishing soon on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, this is your relationship coach, Jane L., signing off.